Welcome again to the Green Island podcast. I'm Bernard Sheehan, co-author of the novel Hard Border. On the line also is James Sheehan, the co-author of the book, available in Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Thanks, James, for joining this evening.
No, it's great to be on. And yeah, got some updates, current updates that we're going to start doing with our podcast and all about, again, centered around Ireland and the enchanted land with the land world of secrets. So Cillian Murphy won Best Actor, I think, Bern, is that
Yeah,
correct? For
I think so. I think
Golden
it was,
Globes, right?
yeah, Best Actor for Oppenheimer. Yeah, that was great.
That's great. So we'll be watching him rise and like over the next couple months. How long? When's the Oscars? And
It's in
a month or
mid-March,
so?
so only like 2 months away, and I'm sure there's a gazillion other award ceremonies between now and then, such as like the Screen Actors Guild and a bunch of other little ones. So that was really kind of the first. So we'll see
Yeah, I think
how
they
that
all won
goes.
pretty much the sweep
Yeah,
as predicted. As we said the
yeah,
other podcast, I think it was we thought they would sweep, and so they did,
they
and all is
did.
good. So we'll follow. We might have to watch it now.
Yeah, and he's a Cork guy, right? Killian, he's a Cork.
I believe so, but that's why we'll have to kind of have him over a segment or two from now and just kind of do
Yeah,
a little research and kind of have a chat because there's a lot. I have a story about him and it'd be great to share. But moving on,
awesome.
we'll do a segment tomorrow about YouTube, and they're in Las Vegas and, in the big world or dome, or what is it called? A globe or?
Yeah, it's called the Sphere. So it's the Vegas Sphere. And I don't know if you watched the Formula One race that was in Vegas. That was pretty cool looking, and it was featured prominently.
Oh, I love Formula One. We
Yeah,
should almost do a segment on that if
yeah,
they had a Grand Prix in Ireland, or we'll figure that out, because their Netflix is awesome, that
yeah,
series.
yeah.
Or it
The
was the first couple seasons, anyways.
true. And this one was pretty. I mean, the again, the Vegas race was really cool to see them going through those streets. Those night races are super cool. So
Awesome.
that was great for him. And
The Sphere in Las Vegas at the Venetian Resort holds its grand opening for showgoers. U2 performed for the crowds, kicking off their 3-month residency and marking the new venue's first concert. That Sphere features a 250-foot wraparound LED screen with 16,000 speakers. It holds nearly 18,000 people. Celebrities walked the red carpet at the grand opening, praising it.
I've also got another story about the Golden Globes we could talk about there as well. And a lot of famous actors, or Irish actors especially, have won there. So it's been a good run for them. And hopefully Cillian will keep on going all the way here to the Oscars in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, it'd be great to see you. We'll have to do Daniel Day-Lewis now. It comes to mind as well
Oh,
as a segment,
yeah,
and
of course.
yeah, of course. So we'll hopefully the listener sticks with us and we'll tackle these topics. And then the last one, of course, is Conor McGregor's run for president, and
Every year is my fucking year.
we're watching this actively on Twitter, and it's gaining some steam. And of course, we're supportive and we're putting out our commercials. And stay tuned to the end of the podcast, and you see our latest commercial for Conor McGregor, our unpaid commercial for Conor McGregor for president. So it should all work out pretty well. So let's support him. It's a year away, but they come around quick, and he has a big fight. So another segment will be following, or
Yeah.
another guy.
He's got to focus on that fight, win that, and then start running or build up his campaign. And, like you said, we're supporters. And I think that could really shake things up if that happened. And that's what we're seeing on Twitter, because it's really starting to blow up. I think people see him more now as a businessman, and then making that transition into Irish politics, because he's kind of sick of the crap out there. It seems every time there's something noteworthy or newsworthy, I should say, he's there saying like, we need to fix this. So I think he's motivated.
Well, that's his audience. It's the MMA or the UFC guys,
Yep.
and yeah. So like he's preaching to the choir, and no better advocate, but he better win the fight. You can't go into the can't go in the presence of, a fight down again, So win the fight, concentrate on that, and run at the same time, But he should do the Netflix,
Right.
because just a documentary. I mean, I saw David Beckham's, and actually my wife put on Robbie Williams, and even though he's not a UK guy, he has a documentary on Netflix, and it's he was the man in like Ireland for music, and so not even though he's not Irish, but we'll have to do a segment on Robbie Williams. It's a new documentary, and they just did one on David Beckham, which was surprisingly good, and they're only like 3 or 4 episodes. It's not big, but you definitely see kind of the highlights and worth watching.
Yeah, I think my wife watched both of those too, and that one with Robbie Williams, she's like, I didn't really know who he was, and all I could think of was everybody, all of our cousins, everyone we knew in Ireland was going to his show when he was in the country, and that was enormous. I mean, the only thing that I can remember that was comparison, was U2 when they were touring over there. So now we could talk about that a little bit more too, and we talk about their residency out in Vegas on our next podcast.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. I think we both have a U2 story. So on top of Pierce Brosnan, who seems again, he's in the news again for a trial date, but I'll talk to you about just how I tried to put the James Gordon clip up on our podcast of him kind of telling his experience with Pierce Brosnan, which got a lot of press, but I guess it's kind of now barred from being used on YouTube at least. But check it out. It's kind of he's quantifying that Pierce is not the nicest of guys, and we don't want to throw mud unless we can back it up. But that's what I heard as well from his time elsewhere. So we'll follow Pierce Brosnan in his hopefully continued career.
Yeah, his trial date is coming up, as you said. It's January 23rd, and it'll be interesting to see what comes of that, because the highest level of the fine you can get is about $5,000, but there's also potential for 6 months in jail. He's not going to do no 6 months in jail. He's not going to do it a day in jail, but still, it's obviously, Joe Schmo would if they were going off the beaten path there.
Well, I mean, equal justice under the law. So, I mean, do we have to have a new campaign to make sure Pierce Brosnan, he just sold like $100 million house down in Malibu like a year ago. Like, it just came across my path. I'm like, holy cow, that house. It's like all part of the beach. Like, you've never seen anything like it. Now, 100 mil is probably pretty steep. It was probably maybe, it's a good $30 million house, but I mean, he's been living large for a long time. If you see this house, incredible, unbelievable. So I don't really begrudge him too much, but it was a good segment last podcast about him, and we'll keep them coming. Hopefully they're not all Disney flicks he keeps doing or does something good. But so far, we're Bond is our guy, and also GoldenEye. Burn. I forgot. We didn't talk about GoldenEye. Why it probably was even more popular was the game, which is besides Mario Kart is kind of incredible. Remember that? So we'll probably have to devote another segment to the GoldenEye game just for Pierce Brosnan.
When you said GoldenEye, I'm like, oh, I thought we touched on that, but you're right. That game, and it's still a classic. I think that gamers now continue to refer back to it as like that was the one.
It was the first. Yeah, that was good. That was fun. And Mario Kart, I think, still blows everybody away with how much that made. I think even maybe more than Tetris. I could be wrong, but James Bond is definitely top 5, if not 3. But that game was awesome. So we'll devote some more to Pierce Brosnan, just the fact that he kicked butt in that game. But until then, we'll move on to the new topic of the day.
Well, one of the things that we had talked about was Irish folks, and obviously this is a podcast from the perspective of Irish Americans, and we've got an Irish American who's a pretty big deal over here in the U.S., Conan O'Brien. He is a talk show host and comedian over here. And he went back to Ireland, and like so many Americans, is going back to tracing his roots, tracing his ancestors. They're outside of Limerick. And he has been bragging now for quite some time that he did like a 23andMe type of DNA test and came back 100% Irish, not like 90, 95 or something, but 100%. So he feels that he's as Irish as they come. And it's interesting to see him kind of do that tour, but it's so, if you like, I mean, from our perspective, everybody's done that, right? Everybody who we know that even has an Irish last name. I mean, they're probably a little bit more Irish than Joe Biden has gone back there and, gone to Ireland and looked to see how Irish am I, or where does my family come from, and kind of do that piece of it. And I think we've even done that as well, and kind of we have that little white house in the hills, which we point to as this is where our family comes from. So it seems that is a rite of passage. But when we've had Americans over, not only are we doing that and trying to show where they come from, but also kind of doing the Irish tour and hitting all the different hot spots there. Some are great and some are a waste of time, but the Americans definitely want to do them no matter what. One of the ones that always seems to hit with me, and I'm going to just kind of say I feel like it's a waste of time, but Americans always want to do it, is going to kiss the Blarney Stone.
There are many myths and legends about the Blarney Stone, but there are three distinct tales here. One is a tale of how it got here, the other is a tale of how it got its power, and the other is a tale of how it got its name. It is believed that those who kiss the stone will receive the gift of the gab. Now, some say the stone itself was given as a sign of gratitude from a guy called Robert the Bruce of Scotland to Cormac McCarthy, the King of Munster at the time. Now, this was given for his contribution of thousands of men towards a victorious battle against the English at Bannockburn in 1314. Now, the stone was brought back to Ireland and then built into the castle. The story of how it got its power goes like this. Cormac McCarthy saved an old woman from drowning. In gratitude, she cast a spell. Kissing the stone would give the king the ability to speak in a persuasive and convincing way. Now, personally, I find the story of how the stone actually got its name to be more interesting. And it goes a little something like this. Okay, so the Queen Elizabeth I not only reigned over England, she was also the Queen of Ireland. And in the late 16th century, when she wanted to tighten her control over the Irish chiefs, she decided that they all had to hand over legal ownership of their lands to her. Now, on the surface, this guy, Cormac McCarthy, seemed to agree, but with his sweet, smooth talking, he always managed to delay any final action. Now, finally, the Queen actually lost her patience and declared of Lord McCarthy, and I quote, "This is all Blarney. He never means what he says. He never does what he promises." Of course, following this, Lord McCarthy got to keep his castle. And since then, people from all over the world have come to kiss the stone in pursuit of this gift of the gab, or, in other words, the gift of eloquent speech. On an interesting note, the Texas Tech University in America claims to have a piece of the Blarney Stone. This is on display outside their electronical engineering building and was unveiled on St. Patrick's Day in 1939.
For me, it's just like, what are we doing? We're taking a trip down to Cork, which is really kind of out of the way from everybody's perspective, and then standing in line with really nobody else other than a bunch of other Americans and trying to kiss the Blarney Stone. You're hanging upside down. Actually, I feel like they did that in The Simpsons when they went to Ireland, and they captured that pretty well, where you're leaning back and hanging upside down, and then trying to kiss the Blarney Stone, and then it's like another 3-4 hours back home, wherever you are in Ireland. You're driving back after that excursion. So that, to me, is one of the ones that Americans always want to go on, and it's just, to me, such a waste of time.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at it from the whole perspective, I mean, Ireland's the size of Illinois, And like, what else is going to get them down into the country? They'd stay in Dublin the whole time, or you know, maybe go to Belfast, but that was kind of off limits for a lot. Like people went to Ireland, they stayed in Ireland, and then maybe go to Galway, but then you have to loop around the Killarney and Cork. So they needed something to kind of keep them there, to bring in the Cork and the big castle. And I kind of thought it was nice. I mean, like search it out now. I think you remember when the roads in Ireland were quite windy, and like everywhere you went, it didn't matter if you weren't driving, which none of us were, you got sick because they were so windy back to where we stayed, which was in Kerry. Like 2.5 hours of just windy roads around mountains. Again, when Burns refers back to like a couple episodes ago about the EU bringing in like highways. In fact, they did, like where it's just plain highways through the center of the country that branches off to the main cities. It was revolutionary, and they just did it like 20 years ago, where it should have been done 40 years ago. So when we were there and kids, we were going around these windy roads and going through little towns, and you got sick a lot of the time because it's like hedges, and I mean, very fun to watch and stuff, but it was crazy sickness. And I drove it then when I kind of got older and like lived there, down to back to Kerry, and taking some of the windy roads just for like to just get home quicker. But it's definitely a challenge to drive around. It's So definitely worth seeing, though, the Blarney Stone and another few attractions like Galway, or whether it is the Guinness factory, which, you know, getting 2 pints or schooners or whatever you call them at the end, or 2 glasses of was kind of worth it. But otherwise, it's just going through a brewery, but they like to sell the Guinness stuff at the end.
So. I think those 2 are worth it. I think that going to the Guinness factory is great. Going to the brewery is awesome. And like you say, yeah, you can buy stuff and trinkets at the end, but I feel like that is a good one to hit.
So
I think most of these people did not have to go through a whole tour. I think a lot of them got their Guinness right away. I think the president got his Guinness right away. I think Jorge Garcia got his Guinness right away. But me, I've been taken through the history of oats, barleys, grains, hops. I've watched them grow. I've watched you till the fields.
It's all part of the learning process, though. It's really important that you know what's going on.
Okay, let's go and see how the steel was made to make the building, and then how the concrete was poured, shall we?
I don't think that would be necessary. I think that's a little
No, I think we should be thorough.
It's a little too far.
I'll show you how to drink it.
No, you see what men do when they drink Guinness. Never look down at a pint of Guinness because it's bad, man. It's always look to the horizon.
Look to the horizon.
Pull your elbow up and then pull the liquid through the head.
I'm finding the glass with my tongue.
Really?
Okay, and then you sit underneath the foam?
Yes. Tilt the glass and get the liquid going. Fingers don't go down though. You can put the finger. Thank you.
I'm still looking at the horizon. Are you still here? I can't see you.
There. Try it again, but just try to keep it in.
Oh, I couldn't try more. Slide in.
Nice, smooth. Answer that, actually.
Guinness. Here you go. Here's Fergal. Hold on one sec. It's someone who works here.
Hello, Pia. Well done. You were brilliant. You'll have to come up and meet him. He's definitely going to be here for a while. She found you charming. Oh, good.
And going to Galway, the city itself is also great. That's also a fantastic destination. Like I said, I just didn't think the Blarney Stone was at that caliber. I wouldn't take people there.
I appreciate that, but
I'm sorry.
it only gets them down there. Then no, sorry to cut across you, but it gets them down to the south. like if you don't have that kind of star attraction, Killarney's not going to get you there. And Cork doesn't really have anything else. Maybe the Middleton factory, which is a whiskey, and that's just my preferred choice. It's not even Jameson. So I don't think that like you, but you know, so they made a tourist attraction out of something that maybe it wasn't.
Yeah.
Possibly. I mean, what's the legend about kissing the stone anyways? I mean, I've done it, but you lean back and you kiss it, and it's kind of all, you know, a little scary when you're a child, or like I did it maybe when I was 8 or 10 or 14, or kind of maybe I've done it a few times because again, we'd go for summers and it's like, oh yeah, well, I'll get away from sitting in a house in the rain. I'll go to kiss the Blarney Stone for 7 hours. It's 3 hours there, an hour to kiss it, and 3 hours home.
Well, that's what I'm saying. For like an American who's there for 2 weeks, we're there for the entire summer and go every year. For them, if that's a waste of a day, I would think, versus you say, okay, there's nothing down in the south or the southwest, but you mentioned Killarney, and that is beautiful. I think Killarney is well worth the trip. It's a beautiful town. It's the Gap of Dunlow. It is just absolutely stunning. Well, but then you
Capital
also
of the kingdom.
Yeah, you have Dingle as well. I think that's also, I mean, talk about windy, scary roads, but it's worth it. It's beautiful. It's absolutely fantastic, especially if you get a good day. And now you've got, Skellig Myconic there, where they filmed Star Wars, which is what all Americans would know about, really. But I know that that's out there, but you can still get a feel for it, even if you don't make that ferry ride out to see it in person. So I think there's a lot. And frankly, I think the best is kind of the West Coast, where it's, whether it's Galway or further south. In some of the prep for this, I saw Donegal, and I've actually never been up there. I don't know if you've gone up and seen, I know one of our sisters lived up there for a while, but I've never really made that trip.
Yeah, it's nice. So I went up there with my wife just after we got married, kind of an inter-Ireland trip when we lived in Ireland, and it was quite. So we went to Belfast, and then we went to Derry, and then we circled back around, which brings you to the west side of the country, down to Galway. And it's very interesting because it's like rocky. It's kind of like the picture hard border. You see the rocks, and that's what it is. That's Letterkenny up there above Galway, and so there's even a place in there. I think that is Letterkenny. And like, yeah, so it's quite rocky and stuff like that. So it's a different geological altogether. Quite nice in the north. Like the English, if you look at it that way, really kept up like good roads and had good like lighting systems. And compared to Ireland, let's say after 1920, when they modernized, or when the world was modernizing with lamps for highways and stuff like that, or properly cut edges. And so I found it very enjoyable up there. And I also found, it was quite interesting to see the far like west north of Ireland, how it's just like hard border. Nice. That's kind of how it looks. And you wouldn't believe it. So like you can't raise cattle there. So they would bring it, like the guys, for example, our grandfather, that was his business, was cattle. And he would bring the people that bore the cattle on the west side. And then he would pretty much walk them to the middle of the country to be raised on the grass and eat the grass and fan the calves. And he did that for people, and provided a family some food and stuff like that. So that's the West anyways. That's the business he was in, was taking it to the next step in the cattle business.
Yeah. So we tie it back kind of to Yellowstone in a way, with that family being in the cattle business as well. When I see that, it always makes me feel kind of proud that, like, hey, that's our family too.
Yeah, it's just these guys didn't get horses. Yep. They had to walk them back. Maybe they popped them on a train after a while or something, but I'm assuming to get started they walked them back. But what else do you have to do, right? arbitrage.
Yeah, we'll have to do a little bit more research on that and see what that progression was like, because I'd like to know.
Yeah, so that's kind of the situation with Galway. But just get that back to the Blarney Stone. I mean, Cork, you wouldn't really have any attraction to go to Cork then, which would be a shame. Blarney Stone is kind of its main attraction, and it's good to show Cork, but it's as you said, it's 7 hours. But you kind of said you did it, and you maybe pick up an Aaron sweater or something to remember your trip. But I think it's kind of one of those things that you have to do if you're just circling around. As you said, Kerry, I look past it because I lived there for a good portion of my 20 years in Ireland on and off, and so I'm so used to it. But you kind of forget how nice it was, particularly Dingle and Killarney particularly. But I was in and out so often, particularly Tralee, and nice spot, great golf, and good place to grow up. But now it's kind of that was then and we're now, and it's a different place maybe economically.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, Cork is nice. The city is nice, and I know there's great sailing down there, etc. And it's a beautiful place. But if you don't have a reason to go, I don't know. I just always felt that just going down to kiss some stone to give you the gift of the gab or whatever was a waste of a day. But again,
well, if you added in
Kinsale,
Kinsale, actually, that might be a nice trip. You do 2 stops because Kinsale's a nice fishing village, and it has great food for like fish and chips and stuff, like nice scenery, and it's just a little off the beaten path. And if you're staying around the area, like the Old Head, although very expensive, is probably the best golf course maybe in the world, like no joke. So for those guys that might want to bring the rent clubs or play or bring them. But otherwise, if you topped it, like if you did the Blarney Stone and you're only there and this is your only trip and you're moving on to the UK or into like France or whatever, and you're don't do the circle, I think Blarney and maybe Kinsale might keep you in Cork to give Cork their due.
All right. I think that more or less brings us up to date for today. We'll be picking more up. Next time we'll be talking about U2 here a little bit more. Obviously, kind of Ireland's premier rock band of all time, but they're definitely not the only one. So we'll talk about that, and obviously continue to keep everybody up to date with everything else that's going on and any other points of interest that come up along the way.
Yeah, it's interesting that U2 got like the residence at the Sphere.
The Sphere,
it's called?
it's
like
just opened.
Yeah. Yeah, Elon Musk said that's just incredible. Like it's like his second best show of all time or something. I mean, if you go, I'm like, have you been to Circus Olay? But I mean, it's I look forward. And it's funny that YouTube gets it. That's quite some pull. So we'll have to dedicate tomorrow's show to them and give them their due. I mean, we alluded to them in the first episode of just getting into what Hard Border Podcast would be. But now maybe we'll do a quick little deep dive into who they are and how they got such the plum spot.
Yep, perfect. All right, James. Thanks so much. I think that wraps us up for today. Appreciate the time, and I'll talk to you soon.
Great. Thanks very much. Have a good one.
Bye now.